Meeting of the Centennial School Board is called to order at 6:31 p.m. On July 9th, 2025. We have a quorum present. Welcome, everybody. First thing we will do is take a look at the agenda for the day. Is there anything going on with the agenda that we want to talk about before?
Chair Solosky,
Please.
I'd like to add a motion to suspend.
I don't need it.
I'd like to add a motion to suspend board policy, and I have to look at it, BCB, election of board officers, until our July 30th meeting, so that we can have everybody here. And it allows our newest board member to be sworn in, to be, been with us for a while. So I'm not sure where you'd like me to put that. Obviously, it would come before the election of officers if it were to pass.
Yes, so are you making a motion?
I can make the motion now if you'd
Yeah.
like. Oh.
Let's go ahead and-
Okay. Our board policy does state that we should have elections in our July meeting. It's also stated in ORS 255-3355, but we have two board members who are missing because of personal reasons, and I'd like to suspend the policy until July 30th when we have all board members present.
So you may consider proposing to approve the agenda with the amendment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Should I do that? No, we'll even before.
I would do it as a part of the approval of the
Okay.
agenda. Would you agree? Yes.
Okay. So there's an amendment. Do we need to vote on the amendment though?
You would vote on the amended
Agenda.
agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So motion to approve the agenda as with the addition of
A motion to suspend.
motion to suspend BCB.
Yeah. So we're moving let's get this clear. We're making a motion to change the agenda to add the suspension of board policy BCB for suspending the election until July 30th as provided for in our own policy and with ORS 255-335 as an explanation.
Okay.
But you still have to vote on the agenda as amended.
Yes. So voting on the agenda as amended, there's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Oh, please.
Oh.
Yeah, it didn't seem like we had any discussion on the amendment before it moved to the vote. I have not only questions, but concerns that this is setting kind of a new precedent. And I'm not sure that there was really an explanation given just beyond that two members can't be here tonight, because I look back for several years, people have been absent, not only on our July meeting, but for the strategic planning meeting as well that we're proposing to move it to. And is that a new precedent we're going to start, that even though people can participate by statements, text message, phone call, Zoom call in, that if two members can't be at the July meeting, then we will move any agenda item, or?
May I?
Please.
If we just move to amend the agenda, it just allows for the motion to be heard if it gets a second, and then the debate on the motion itself, which I think I'm hearing from you, right? We can do that discussion and concern and then have the vote, but we're not voting on what I have said I'd like the motion to be, as I understand it, Chair. We're just voting to amend the agenda to have this motion heard prior to the vote for board officers. Because having it after the vote for the board officers wouldn't make any sense, because it's really a suspension of the policy for the purpose of delaying the board officer election.
Okay, now I'm confused, because I thought James was saying that to adopt the amendment we would approve it as part of the agenda.
It's a good point of clarity, so I'll allow you all to kind of figure out how you're proceeding.
Okay. My intent, so if, now I'm looking at the chair. My intent was to amend the agenda to allow for this motion to be heard prior to the election, the vote for board officers. So it could be debated, not that I was trying to,
Thank you for the clarification.
yeah, that,
I was confused as well.
I was confused as well.
Yes.
Great.
well, I'm sorry.
No, I
guys.
think that it's all good.
Oh, okay.
So can we vote to approve the meeting agenda where we will add a motion discussion between the oath of office and the election of officers?
That
Moved
would,
and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. All right. Next up on the agenda is the introduction of guests, and we are very excited to have a new board member here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Superintendent Owens and probably move myself out of the way.
Great, we have a new board member, and we have an oath of office for each board member who's been elected as well. So
What?
we'll be doing a swearing in for 4 of us tonight, or 4 of you. So, well, let's start with Director Newman. All right, Michael Newman, come on up over here. You've got your own microphone as well, perfect.
That works? Yeah.
Great, so I don't have to do the awkward. All right, I've got a script for you. I'll read it and you'll follow after me. And it says here, upon being duly sworn,
Upon being duly sworn,
I, Michael Newman,
I, Michael Newman,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
to the best of my abilities.
to the best of my abilities.
Welcome to the school board.
Thank you.
All right, Director Lynn. Please repeat after me. Upon being duly sworn,
Upon being duly sworn,
I, David Lynn,
I, David Lynn,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
to the best of my abilities.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations on your reelection. All right, Director Mooring. This is your second one in just a few months.
Yes, 8 months.
All right, please repeat after me. Upon being duly sworn,
Upon being duly sworn,
I, Will Mooring,
I, Will Mooring,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
to the best of my abilities.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Vice Chair Shields.
I love that you have the script ready. That's really great. Thank God. Don't you dare.
All right.
All right.
Upon being duly sworn,
Upon being duly sworn,
I, Pam Shields,
I, Pam Shields,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
will support the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
and will discharge the duties of the Centennial School District
to the best of my abilities.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations on your
Thank
reelection.
you.
I was told everybody has to do that. That's what I was told.
Congratulations to each one of you. So next up, we have the election of officers. So at this point, I think we will open up discussion on whether or not to suspend policy BCB. And so what I will do is we will go around, everyone will have the opportunity to speak, ask questions, and then we'll go around a second time to see if there's anything before we take a vote.
Making the motion, who is the second? I know I'm making the motion.
Well, no,
So,
maybe we should do that again because that was
That was kind of
the agenda.
part.
Yes,
I
let's,
believe so.
I would like to make a motion this evening that we
Microphone.
suspend board policy BCB. I would like to make a motion that we suspend policy BCB until our July 30th meeting, allowing for board members, all board members to be in attendance. Would be the motion.
is there a second?
A second?
All right,
As the maker of the motion, may I speak to the motion, Chair?
please do.
Okay. At the end of the last meeting, we were made aware that Jess wasn't going to be here. Jess Harden and Melissa Stanley both have personal reasons for not being able to be in attendance. And we have a new board member as well, which always feels a little awkward. In fact, when I did the research on it, it always feels a little awkward to swear in a new board member and then suddenly have to vote on leadership when they haven't even learned who leadership might be. When checking with Oregon School Board Association, we are allowed to suspend a policy. We also have the opportunity to stay within the ORS, which I referred to earlier, 255.335-subsection 5, which states that we should have the meeting before the last day of July, and that would be our board retreat. So at that point in time, it's like, oh, that would be nice to have everybody here and have Michael have an opportunity to know a little bit more about the board. It hasn't been done before that I'm aware of, but we have had concerns about the number of people necessary because a vote for board leadership does take not just the majority or the quorum of the people present, but the quorum of the entire board. And so that's a decision that should be made, in my opinion, should be made when everyone's available to be here, if we are within the structure of the policy and within the structure of the ORS. So that was the reason why I brought it forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Please.
Just as a matter of process, if we did have quorum and then we do have the sufficient number of votes to proceed, is there an overriding reason to go beyond that? Then, because then we would default to suspending the policy, correct? Because if we had officers unable to get the number of votes, then it would default to a future meeting. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. When we have had a question about the vote, which we did when you came on the board, the first time, because you're on the board the second time, what the question was it a simple majority or it had to be the majority of the board? So on a 7-person board, you have to have 4 in the affirmative for any individual. That's what we found out. We didn't know that when we were taking the vote at that time. So that's what I know from that process, and that was an OSBA, and also a clarification with OSBA at that time. So if we took, let me try again to figure it out. So if we took a vote tonight, we would have to, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, we'd have to have 4 in the affirmative for any officer position to have that go forward. And so the next second part of your question was, and if we didn't have 4 affirmative votes, then it would default to
Your proposal.
either the proposal or it would default to continued voting.
It would default to continued voting unless we heard another motion to
So it would
suspend
have
the
to just
policy.
be repeated until,
I was wondering if we could do the proper process, but then if it was insufficient, follow through with your motion
no,
afterwards.
because when we had this question come up the former time, it was that we weren't aware that we had to continue to vote. And so what we did is we just said, okay, we'll just wait. We'll wait.
There wasn't a suspension of the policy.
So, well,
Right.
at that particular point in time, there was not a suspension of the policy.
Right.
So which is why it was like, oh, no, there's a better way to do it. And the better way to do it, based on Oregon School Board Association, OSBA, is that you vote to suspend the policy. And that way, you have the opportunity to have all board members, and in this case, all board members also
Mhm.
present. There's
Okay.
never a guarantee to have all board members present, but
True.
it's a help.
We'll just go around. I want to hear from everybody. Will, do you have any questions or thoughts to add?
Yeah, I think that, as a matter of process and just personal preference, when it comes to decisions of leadership for a public body like this, or any sort of impact, any sort of body or organization that has real life consequences and impacts as a result of decisions that we make, that all voices should be included as best as possible. And if a couple people aren't here, I don't, call it my newness if you want, but I don't see any danger in waiting to wait one more meeting to hopefully have everybody's voices count for something. And we may or may not have the same results
Yeah.
at the end of the month that we might have tonight, but that I don't think means that we should just skip the process and the potential of having people participate in the conversation.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have two directors are here and they're not with us virtually, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think that they would want to participate in this conversation should they have the opportunity. And so that's just, that's the way I like to lead, is by consensus and making sure that everybody's involved in the process. And this is why I voted to second the motion. This is why I seconded the motion to begin debate.
Michael?
I'll be honest, I have a little bit of mixed feelings on the motion. Really, either way, I'm right. For myself, I'm kind of weighing both ends. On the one hand, I like the idea of establishing officers, a few weeks before our July 30th meeting and the strategic planning there, just, so that is set. On the other hand, I appreciate Pam acknowledging, I don't know you all that well yet. So giving me a little bit of time. I don't know how much one meeting is going to make a difference, if I'm going to be frank about it. But it would, I see the value in waiting, at least for my point, being able to have a little more thoughts about voting for the various officers. Honestly, that's really where I'm standing right now. I'm a little bit undecided at the moment.
Thank you.
Clarification? David, you mentioned strategic planning. We don't usually do strat planning, a lot of strat planning during the board retreat. We use that as a topic of discussion, but are we doing strat planning this year?
No.
I just meant board retreat, sorry.
I will, I can speak to that. So we are not delving too much into strategic planning for the retreat. We have some standing items that we kind of go through every year as far as like board operating agreements. And then at the end of the day-to-day, we were going to talk a little bit about if there were other topics that people wanted to add to our agenda. But there's not necessarily a ton of work that happens between now and then, the way that we have it set up now.
Can I ask a follow-up to
Please.
that?
Yeah.
If we were to delay the vote until the 30th, would we be looking at doing the vote for officers towards the end of the meeting, the middle? Have we thought
It's a
about
great
when?
question. I would think we would probably want to do it fairly close to the beginning. That makes the most sense. And then, be prepared. Just kidding. Be prepared to, move forward with the meeting the best we can.
Okay. Thanks.
Meaning that I'm happy to still do the chair things if whoever gets chair doesn't feel comfortable doing that on the spot in the moment in that meeting. Pam, did you have anything else to add?
Not at this moment.
Thank you. David, did you have anything else to add?
I think it was my previous comments, it was the concern about creating a new precedent, and it seems like we are changing policy kind of on the fly. Because it's very intentional, and it's been set up the way it has been to have new officer, or new board members, a new board, and then immediately go to board officers. So, and I guess I'm just not hearing, I didn't hear anything from Directors Harden or Stanley. So I guess me coming prepared to do this agenda item and then hearing that we're going to delay it
And
for reasons that seem to happen all the time, just seem like we are creating a new precedent, and
Yeah.
that's my concern.
and I will say that when, both of those directors were going to try to make it happen to come, and so then I was like, one of them is on vacation, one of them has opening night, right? So there's lots going on, and so I was asking, like, is there a way that, like, they could still be included, and we're not breaking policy, or we're not doing anything wrong or shady, so that they didn't have to, like, sacrifice to make it happen. And that's kind of where we got where we were. Yeah. But, please.
I will tell you this. I've always felt weird about voting with new board members in the very first meeting that they attend. It happened to me when I was first elected. It's happened to anybody who was first elected. And so I contacted OSBA to find out, well, I know we can suspend policies. We've done it for other reasons, not just this, but it happens. And it's like, why July? Because the board doesn't have an opportunity to meet with each other or talk with each other. And it's very strange to be talking to somebody who is yet to be, sorry to point it out, Michael, who's yet to be sworn in. And then you just kind of, it happens that they have to get into this mix. When I checked on that, and I called Vince Adams, because it's like, okay, Vince, explain this to me. And because I had heard from Melissa and Jess that I knew Jess was going to be on vacation, just as Chair Selesky said. And it's like, why? And he's like, well, that's what your board policy says, but you can go ahead and suspend it. So that's where I started. Well, when I read through the policy, at the very bottom, they have all of those references of some sort, and that's where I found the ORS reference. And so when I looked that up, it was like, oh, it's in Oregon Revised Statutes that it happens by July. But checking back with Vince, it's like, you have a meeting in July, so you're going to be fine by the ORS standard. In fact, I would suggest, and probably will suggest, that policy actually is, changed, so that we could have a meeting where we could invite our new board members into the board, have an opportunity for a couple of weeks to, meet and talk, and then make these kind of important decisions. It just has always felt weird to me in the opposite way, right? So that's how it came up.
I certainly don't want anybody to feel unheard, or feel like they were excluded from the process. What if two people can't make it to the strategic meeting, or the the board retreat?
The board retreat.
Because
here's
I
what I would say.
checked back on the board retreats. We don't have full attendance at the board retreats
Yes.
either.
Here's what I would say, is that if we have the quorum then we should try to, because the QRS, not QRS,
ORS.
ORS, so it was said something about, it has to be done by the end of July. And so if we did not get a full quorum at the end of July, on July 30th at our next meeting, then we would have to figure something else out, right? Stay there until we figured it out.
Okay, great, thanks. No further questions.
Okay. At this point, does anybody have any further thoughts or questions? I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of suspending policy BCB and pushing our election of officers to the July 30th meeting, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed?
So 3-2, the ayes have it.
I believe you need to vote for a quorum.
What's that?
I believe you need a quorum of board members to pass the motion.
Not a quorum of, well,
A
To
quorum of 7. You need 4.
You need a quorum of 7 for certain elections.
for the elections, but not for the motion.
For this motion?
Yeah.
Is it 3-2 can pass?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, unless there was a tie, then you have to.
All right. The approval of minutes. June 18, 2025 minutes have been submitted in board book for you to look over. Did anybody notice any edits or corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the July 18th minutes as presented.
Second?
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. All those opposed?
I think I just need to abstain because I was not present at said.
Again.
Abstain? 1. All right, so we have 4. 1 abstain. Next up for public forum, I don't remember seeing anything coming through in the meantime, in the last bit. So we will continue to move along. Superintendent's report. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Superintendent Owens.
Great, thank you, Chair Slasky and Director Mooring. It is a medium-sized report tonight.
Thank you.
Good to see everyone this evening. Welcome to both our returning board members as well as Director Newman for our first meeting of the year. As you know, July 1 marks the start of the new fiscal year in school district. So as I begin my 14th year as an administrator in Centennial, wow, that's getting up there, 10th year in the district office and 5th year in this role as superintendent, I appreciate the opportunity to share this report with you. Centennial School District is once again offering a comprehensive summer learning program for students in grades K through 12, made possible by continued support from the Oregon Department of Education and partnerships with our community organizations. Programming began earlier this week and is running Monday through Friday from July 7th through the 25th, with coordination activities having taken place the prior week. We continue with a theme cultivating joy, connection, and curiosity that is reflected across all grade levels through a blend of academic support and enrichment activities. The Oregon State Summer Learning Bill, House Bill 2007, provides funding and guidance to support high-quality summer programs across the state, with a strong emphasis on accelerating student literacy learning and addressing unfinished instruction. This year, we have set goals aimed at accelerating literacy achievement for the elementary, middle, and high school programs, and evidence-based literacy instruction is embedded throughout the summer learning day. On the screen here, you'll see some pictures that Chief Andrade took earlier this week. Elementary and middle school students are participating in Lit Camp, Math Camp, and that's K-5 only, and STEM-based enrichment through Camp Invention and other Sun Partner offerings. High school programming includes 2 primary pathways: credit recovery for students in grades 9 through 12, the 9th grade Counts transition program, which integrates academics, enrichment, and field trips for rising 9th graders. Programs are staffed by Centennial educators and Sun Partners, with services offered for all elementary students at Butler Creek, all middle school students at Centennial Middle School, and Centennial High School for high school students. You might be wondering about enrollment. Enrollment for our summer programming this year reflects 282 students in the elementary program at Butler Creek, 108 students in the middle school program at CMS, 56 students in the 9th grade Counts at CHS, and 253 students in the credit recovery at CHS. In addition, 8 students of color from CHS will serve as educational assistants. This is part of an educator pathway Centennial is continuing to develop as we continue to work towards staff diversification. This pathway provides support, advocacy, and funding to to help diverse staff members of our district and school community earn degrees, become licensed, and secure employment in local school districts as teachers, counselors, and other licensed school professionals. This year's program is supported by $813,000 in funding through the Oregon Department of Education's 2025 State Summer Learning Grants, part of House Bill 5047. These grants support evidence-based summer learning programs with a focus on improved literacy and academic outcomes, particularly for students reading below grade level. Now that the legislative session is wrapped up, one update worth noting is that as part of the recently passed state budget under Senate Bill 5515, Centennial is anticipating significant reductions to our Student Success Plan grant funding beginning in July 2025. These reductions are part of a broader statewide cut of approximately 50% to equity-focused grants, including those supporting Latinx and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander student achievement. How those cuts will look in practice is yet to be determined, and we're still figuring that out. While our current multi-year grants remain funded through June 2025, this change will have a substantial impact in our ability to sustain the intended programming unless additional funding becomes available. More to come as our planning is revised accordingly. I'm pleased to mention that Centennial's Dining Services team has been selected for the Healthy Meals Incentives Recognition Award, a national honor from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Action for Healthy Kids, recognizing school districts that have strengthened the nutritional quality of school meals. Centennial's award is the Innovative Award, which recognizes districts that use USDA base ingredients and create new and exciting recipes for students. Led by Pia Watzig, District Nutrition and Wellness Coordinator, recipes recognized for Centennial's award include Mediterranean beef gyro with tzatziki, Italian meaty pasta bake, chicken shawarma with marinated cucumber salad. As part of this recognition, 3 team members have been invited to attend the Fall 2025 Healthy Meals Summit in Las Vegas this October. The summit includes hands-on training, collaboration with national experts, and professional development focused on fresh food sourcing, scratch cooking, and student engagement in nutrition programs. This award affirms the innovative work and commitment of our nutrition services staff to support student health and well-being through high-quality, standards-aligned school meals. So kudos to our team. With buildings largely vacant during the summer, this is a prime window for completing major infrastructure work. While these projects come with short-term disruption, they are crucial long-term investments in safe and functional learning environments. Projects that are undertaken this summer include seismic improvements to Oliver Middle School, focused on the center of the building, including the middle wing of classrooms, the media center, entry, cafeteria, and front office. Work includes structural supports, roof connections, large concrete footings, and rebuilding portions of the exterior walls. Here you can see some pictures. I'm not sure if they're of that, but there's some pictures of construction that's happening now. There's more. Renovation of 5 learning spaces at Park Lane Elementary, including their music room, 3 general education classrooms, and 1 ELD classroom. That's what I was wondering after I said it. I think this is the Park Lane project. Okay, thank you. So that's that. What you don't see pictured is playground replacement at Powell Butte, covered play shelter at Park Lane Elementary, and painting of all large common spaces in schools, including libraries, gyms, cafeterias, etc. So kudos to Director Southerton and the facilities team for all of their hard work that they're undertaking this summer. This spring, the district conducted a formal RFP process to select a partner for our next long-range facilities plan. You see pictures of various facilities planning that we've done over the last 5 to 10 years. This process included a public solicitation, proposal review, interviews with finalist firms, and committee scoring based upon qualifications, engagement strategy, equity alignment, and pricing. Following this process, the district issued an intent to award to DLR Group on July 3rd, pending the conclusion of the required protest period. DLR is recommended for the contract based upon their strong planning experience and community-centered approach. We intend to bring forward the contract for board approval at the July 30th board retreat. This work is foundational as we prepare for the district's next phase of long-range planning and capital project strategy. Vice Chair Shields' favorite topic. As you may have seen, Governor Kotek's Executive Order 2509 prohibits personal electronic device use by students during the instructional day and requires all Oregon school districts to adopt aligned policies by October 31st, with full implementation required by January 1, 2026. ODE has provided initial guidance, templates, and office hours to support policy development. Locally, we're reviewing this guidance, including sample procedures and equity-centered enforcement strategies, and we'll develop a Centennial policy this fall through input cycles involving students, staff, and families. While some implementation questions remain, particularly related to field trips, after-school activities, and staff modeling, our team, including Maren Miller, as you see over here, is already engaged in reviewing current practices and aligning them with state expectations. We plan to bring further updates as this work evolves. Yesterday, I received an invitation from the city of Gresham to attend a delegation from a visit from our sister city, Seoul, South Korea, on Friday, July 18th from 9:30 to 11 at Gresham City Hall. Located near the eastern coast of South Korea, Seoul is one of Gresham's former sister cities. Reconnecting with Gresham's sister cities has been identified as a local priority, and I'm honored to represent Centennial in supporting the revitalization of this international relationship. Finally, tomorrow and Friday, our leadership team will hold its annual Superintendent's Cabinet Retreat at the Multnomah Education Service District. This retreat is designed to strengthen our leadership culture through relationship building and trust, reflect our team functioning in alignment, deepen our learning around high-performing district practices, and focus our leadership on disciplined implementation of Roadmap 27 as we enter, believe it or not, year 3. This is a key opportunity to ensure our work is grounded in shared strategy, purpose, and partnership as we prepare to welcome students and staff back in the weeks ahead. So even though it's summer, there's a lot happening in the district, and with that, I welcome any questions or comments you might have. And this concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Owens. I'm looking around the room. Are there any questions? Do you have one?
Just on the cell phone executive order, you're convening, I'd like to know what Multnomah ESD is going to be doing, and if anything. I know we all have to have our own policies, right? But we also work from the springboard of OSBA, but we also have a local resource, which is the Multnomah ESD. Poor Maren has to come up here and discuss this. I'm just curious, we have school districts who are ahead of us. We had off and away, but we have districts around us that have been bell to bell. So what are we able to glean from others as we embark on a policy?
Yeah, and I called I don't even know what to call you anymore. I was going to say Principal Miller, Director Miller. You're kind of in limbo right now. So Mr. Miller, we'll go with that. I've called Mr. Miller to help field some questions, but I'll take the first. He went to the ODE office hours yesterday, and so he got some information there. I think Director Olson was there as well, and so she can join him in the hot seat if she'd like. But I would say for Multnomah County, the district that has implemented is Portland Public. They had the initial schools, and then they have the school-wide ban that took place. And so that's a district to glean from. Other districts were taking a wait-and-see approach. Reynolds had done some looking into it and had some tentative recommendations. But as far as early adopters, I would look at North Clackamas, as we've talked about before, potentially, as a district that's a little bit further along. And they also have the Yonder pouches. So, I think there's different enforcement techniques and methodologies to explore as well.
And they're not part of Multnomah ESD, they've got their own Clackamas. They have their own Clackamas ESD, they're not
Yeah,
part of
so
our
we'd have to
Multnomah.
do a different outreach
Okay.
or invite them. We're also awaiting sample policies that are normally provided from OSBA, but I think ODE is talking about potentially providing sample policies instead or in addition to. So I don't know if, Mr. Miller, if you have any input to provide from the office hours yesterday.
No, and that's exactly what's going on right now, because everybody's still analyzing the executive order. That's what's happening in the, it's craft sharing. And even, different people have put, or different districts have put different policies in place, but now it's, how does that policy apply to that particular executive order? Because there's different nuances in it. And so, yeah, we're waiting, the next step will be whatever comes out of, board policy and what's suggested. So, and what came out of the discussion was, or what is happening right now, is there's different questions that are coming up. One of the things is field trips that are happening during the day, and how does this board policy, board policy, because it is during instructional time, executive order says instructional time, therefore field trips would be banned. And so they're seeking clarification. So we're still in early stages of implementation, or even figuring out what that would look like. And then the next step is to actually see what suggested language, and then bringing it to you. Did you want to add anything? Okay.
Thank you. Director Moore.
Thank you. Yeah, my thoughts on the executive order and just the task before us to adopt a policy by the end of October. Once we get back into school, it's not a whole lot of time. And I just want to make sure the most impacted people that will feel it have had a chance to be included, be it their parents or community members or however. And I think we've talked about this at board meetings this past fall as well. It seems like now we have a real timeline to work on, kind of given to us, right? Like wake up one morning and that is what it is. So I'm just curious, early thoughts on how we're going to conduct that with everything else that happens when school starts again.
Yeah, and I'll start, I'll take the first crack and let Mr. Miller join in as well. But for us to have a policy, we need to consider our board meeting dates and kind of work back from there. So ideally, you'd have a first read of a policy and a second read. So you kind of need to do your engagement strategies in September so that you're ready to have that policy drafted prior to that meeting in October. So it's going to come up before you know it, which is to what I believe to be your point, Principal or Mr. Miller. Any thing to add?
No, and the only other thing to add is, as you are considering the policy and you're going to be implementing, we are still looking at each of the building sites. We have policies in place. And so one of the reasons I am, interested in this, and especially at high school, is looking at this policy right now, looking at our current policy, and then figuring out, hey, there's things that we need to adapt and change. And right now we have students and parents that are accessible during summer school in August. And so one thing that we're working, and we've always done this process at the school level, is taking, hey, this is what it's going to look like, to start the school year, and we're actually in that process. And we're going to go through a similar cycle of getting feedback from the different stakeholder groups to start the school year. Once you set a policy, then we'll be adapting, of course, adapt to that policy. But we need to have a policy to start the school year and we're looking at what the executive order is and already aligning to it. So that's sort of what we're in the middle of doing right now. And at the same time, making sure all stakeholders have some input in that, even though we're in the middle of summer. And because students and, as I said, parents are accessible right now with summer school, this is a prime time for us to do that. So that's actually what we have actually started.
The other thing I would say really quick is that when it comes to the board approving a policy, that second session, our second meeting of the month is technically a work session, and we try not to hear motions, and so we may need to adjust how we do our business in order to make sure that we get that policy in by the end of October as well.
One more question about the topic at hand. Okay. Appreciate your question. And getting feedback from constituents is important, and that's the way we've always operated. But this is an executive order. So how do you, and this might be a discussion, and please, Chair, you can say, let's talk about that in our July meeting. Because I'm interested in not, you can hear people say their piece, But if it's an executive order, it's the way it's going to be. And so if you set up a meeting that says, here, give us your input, and then we're not going to consider it because we can't, because the executive order doesn't allow us, is it more of input, or is it more of a process of educating about an executive order and what an executive order in the state of Oregon means? So I think that's a fine line that we have to define what it is and how we go forward, and whether or not that can wait till June 30th and have that discussion. I look to you guys to help guide us in that, because I also don't want to talk about this when there's nothing much we can do if.
So there,
If I
Odie,
could-
oh, go ahead.
Do you mind?
Do
Thank
it.
you. I believe, and please correct me if I'm recalling incorrectly, that the executive order leaves room for how cell phones will be stored, or
Yes.
what, right? Will they be put in pouches?
Yeah.
Will they be kept in bags? Like, what is that? So there are some, I would posit some important parts of the executive order that there is to solicit feedback on that. We can absolutely say, sorry, government said we're doing it, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for attending this meeting, this is what's happening. It is what it is, right? But I think that, again, there are some opportunities for us to engage, and that'll just be part of the education, is that this is what we can control, this is what we cannot control.
That's gonna be the
And the
issue.
part that we can control is what we are hoping to get feedback on.
Yeah.
And go from there, right? Like, that's step one, right?
Yep, you're 100% correct. That's part of it. And the other one is the enforcement. So if you have we talk in the classroom or in the school setting, we talk about a social contract. If you have your cell phone out, and this is one of the questions I'm posing with our students right now and our parents, what should happen? Executive order says that it needs to be restorative process. What does that actually mean, and what are the steps, and how do you actualize it? And that needs to be a discussion, and so that's going to be a fascinating discussion. And then it is about empowerment and education. And to be honest, this is a great civic opportunity for our students to learn about, here's an executive order, they've been hearing about it on a national level, now let's talk about what this actually means. And it has an impact in their daily life, and as much as we want to empower and give choice, and give that feedback to that process. So that's part of what we're doing at that school level.
Thank you.
I think Director Mooring said it well. The only thing I would add to that is that we're going to be defined by the constraints and the latitude that is provided. ODE has an accompanying manual that they provided last year and updated as of the date of the executive order that provides guidance about what that community engagement could look like. And so we'll be reviewing that guidance to help inform our engagement strategy, because to your point, what's the point if it's already defined, but there is some measures of latitude there that are worth getting input on. And you want that input before a policy is approved, because you, as the board, I'm imagining, want to know what the community feels before you say what it's going to be.
It's all part of the change management process.
It's a rough one.
Cool. Any other questions for Superintendent Owens? I had one for you. I was curious if the high school students that are serving as educational assistants are being paid?
Dr. Katsuda, did you hear the question?
Are the high school students that are serving as educational assistants, are they being paid for their work? Awesome, that's fantastic.
They've been officially hired as educators.
Awesome, that is wonderful to hear. Thank you. That's my only question. Good job. Confirmation items is up next. Confirmation items were distributed in board book. Does anybody have any questions on them before we move forward?
Move to approve confirmation items as listed in the agenda.
Do we hear a second?
Seconded?
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Fantastic. Let's keep pushing, because we can get this done, you guys. Action items. So, there's really nothing here. What I would like to say is that in our, one of the things that I would like to ask folks to do to our next meeting, and this is new for Michael and Will, is to bring some sort of object that has personal significance to you. Our icebreaker, as we go about, will be an introduction of who you are through the item that you bring. And it can be as simple as a water bottle. If you forget something the day of, it's pretty easy. And then I was curious, we definitely were going to talk about the board operating agreements and board superintendent operating agreements, which is just kind of our that our foundation for how we work with each other and how we work with the superintendent. Other than that, I'm curious if there are other things that rise to the top that folks would like to see on the agenda for our board. Oh, thank you very much.
This is
Oh, that's helpful.
Oh,
our
so,
board leadership last week
yes.
took a look and drafted out what we thought could be an agenda, and
So, thank you, that reminded me, the school reports. So, 2 years ago, we tried every school coming in and giving us a board report. Last year, we changed it up a little bit, and I would love to open it up to see if there's other ideas from the board about how we invite our school community into the board meetings and how we stay connected with those communities. So that's kind of what that and the student recognitions is always one that we can talk about.
Oh, there it is. Question.
Please.
And when you look at the list of topics, that's a lot, which is great. I mean, Roadmap 27 could take up, almost our entire time alone. Will we have the board committee representation, or representative assignments, will we have a list of those prior to the meeting so that we could consider?
Yeah, we'll have Missy send those out. I don't think there's a ton
We
this
haven't.
year, but definitely want folks, because even if they're not, if we don't have some of these committees, like the Bond Oversight Committee in place this year, we'll have them again in the future. And so it's really important for us to take a look at this list, even if
Yeah.
there's not,
yeah, this needs a refresh. It's a couple years old. There's a
Yeah.
newer version, but it kind of gives you an idea.
Yeah.
But the question is whether we would provide
but we can
that.
send what we have out, please.
Yeah, there's like the normal ESB budget committee.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing that for a few years. I don't need to keep doing that. Rotate that. Something like that.
Do you want topics that we may consider for the retreat and/or, as you're putting together the retreat agenda and saying, woo, that just won't fit, maybe we'll just put that as a board topic as well? And I have two specific things that I know I need that.
Please.
But I don't know that they belong here, and that's
Okay.
why I'm not sure.
I think this would be a great time to hear other things also that you want to focus on for the year, so we can determine if the retreat is the best place for it.
Okay, because one of the things, and Mr. Miller mentioned it, in terms of the field trips and travel policy, I had an opportunity to attend a webinar put on by OSBA, and our policy is woefully under whatever you want to call it, and our administrative regs that would relate to that as well. After looking at this, or hearing the scope after this webinar, I'm like, oh, geez, we have, as a board, a policy review committee opportunity or process that we've used when we've had it's just too much to chew on, so we have people who say, I'm willing to chew on that and bring it back to the board. So I would like to recommend that we convene that policy review committee of people who would be interested in the travel policy to work together. We've had 2 or 3 board members, whether we set our intention to, if that's something I'd be interested in, because it'll be on the list, or we just have a topic of it here as the board. But I'm telling you, there are things we are absolutely missing. We don't speak to it at all, because the policy is too old, to speak to some of the things that were bringing up. But it was actually OSBA PACE, and PACE is our legal people, and they had a whole bunch of stuff in there about how to keep ourselves legally compliant and safe that we aren't addressing because it's something that we just haven't gotten to.
Are OSBA policies up to PACE standards?
Oh, that was an interesting question. I asked the question during the meeting. I asked the question of the PACE people to get to the OSBA policy people, and the response is, oh, well, we haven't looked at that in a while. No kidding. I mean, I was like, kind of
So
shocked.
technically, we're still in alignment with OSBA policy guidance.
Yeah, and OSBA
There's
is
this, okay, that's,
out of step.
I think that, when we talked about the policy committee, we've talked about having it be really issue dependent, so that it doesn't, so that we could get people who are, instead of just having like 3 people on a policy committee to get and talk, like, be like, okay, so this one's really gonna be about field trips. Is there anybody that's interested in working on that policy? And then we can pull some folks together. But I think that that's probably not a retreat topic,
Okay,
but
cool.
I'm open to hearing other things, yeah.
I mean, I generally support the idea of having those committees. I
Yeah.
think good governance is a topic I believe in, so I think that we should, when appropriate, take opportunities to do that. I did have a few topics that I would just kind of want to throw out there, and whether they're retreat topics or however, we can tackle that after I bring them out. But under the, I think it was probably board operating agreements, there was some discussion at our last June meeting of political engagements, expected or assumed or otherwise wanting to create new direction or anything around that. And so perhaps that can be, actually, that could be something we address, like how much of our work is not overtly political by nature, but do we want to, like, there have been parents, community members who have asked us to maybe take more of a stand on current events and things like that, and we never addressed it right. We put out some proclamations, and
Right.
but is that something we want to do more of going forward? I think that needs to be a group decision,
Yeah,
right?
that's great.
And then the 2 other things that I wanted to bring up for discussion, with the legislature having their own attendance policies and participation, should we also have that, right? Somehow codified somewhere that if you're only present for 50% of the meetings in a calendar year, should you still be allowed to complete your term, right? Or I don't know what that looks like. I'm throwing 50% out there just as a hypothetical. I'm not saying that has to be it, right? Right, right. Actually, I went back and I looked at those minutes. I had a unanimous vote by the end of that meeting. Thank you. But, you know, so some sort of accountability, right? I mean, we are elected or appointed members who do have public trust and real impact on the decisions that we make. And I think that, and it's not directed at anybody at all. It's just when I look
Yeah.
over things, I say, oh, maybe this is a topic, right?
So that one, I will say, is a little tricky because we are elected officials and it's very hard for us to overrule the public vote on things. And there have been certain situations that have led to attendance becoming an issue for people and those people ending up leaving the board. But there was a lot of steps that happened to try to engage in that process before we got to that point. I think that it would be really hard for me to feel like I could say like, yeah, if you're not here 50% of the time, you know, like, I mean, if you're not here 50% of the time, maybe that's maybe we can talk about that as far as, because that is part of board operating agreements, attendance, right? Like, how do we want to police ourselves on that and hold ourselves accountable on that? And that would be a good conversation for us to have as a group.
Cool. And then the other one too was, I was asked a very interesting question during campaign about should or how do boards go about utilizing the stipends that were approved back in 2023, I think it was.
So
And
that-
should they not, right? And does that increase participation, right? Not thinking just about the next academic year, but just the next election cycle in 2 years. You know, does that allow us to does it allow our body to fully represent the community? If that is something that may provide for a single household or whatever kind of different situation, a
Yeah.
non-two-parent household to participate in something, right?
Well, that is a great question, and I am all about pushing that forward because that kind of got dropped. But I will say, one of the things that is really tricky is how we go about enacting that with ethics. We were waiting for some policy guidance around, because it's technically unethical for us to vote for ourselves for a stipend. So there was some talk about, like, for future board members or at a future date, we would do this. But OSBA probably got busy with other stuff, and I don't know where things are.
I don't think there was any from what I was reading, nothing ever, the follow-up
Yeah.
correctiveness, things did not
It
happen.
didn't happen.
Maybe I need to double check, but I thought in one of the updates, OSBA did say that there was the legislative fix.
Oh, okay,
That was passed. Let me double check on that, but
cool.
I believe I heard that.
Another thing we
We can
could
look into that,
definitely talk about.
And we can also look at the policy, though, as it relates to, we are allowed to reimburse expenses.
Right.
And so the definition of an expense for the board and board participation can be defined. And that's something that we could talk about, what we believe is the definition. And when you talk about single-family situations where childcare might be an issue,
Right.
is that an acceptable expense? Run that through OSBA, push them. If it's already been done, and that's really great to hear, then perfect. But if it hasn't, then maybe it would be an opportunity for us to push a little bit more on that through OSBA and PACE. But it's the Ethics Commission that it's felt like it kind of fell through.
That and the,
But
OSBA lawyers wanted a better fix, even though there were several proposed workarounds, such as you vote for one person's stipend. The board minus one person votes for their stipend. Then you vote for the next person's stipend, with them recusing themselves, and so on and so on. There were workarounds. OSBA was hoping for just a complete blanket clarification, but I think they got a little bit and said, you guys are sanctioned to go forward if you
do that, yeah. Okay, we'll look into that, because, and then, I mean, the other part is that, like, where in the budget does that come from? It's all very complicated, but I would love to have stipends for board members and figure that out. Do you have any thoughts, ideas for things to talk about?
We have the note about school reports, but maybe tangentially related is board outreach to school and communities.
Great.
Whether we talk about at the retreat or
Yeah,
elsewhere.
that's great.
Director Lynn had started some of that on his own this past year, reaching out to some of our high school clubs that was able to join him for one of those. And yeah, I think they overwhelmingly want to meet with us and and talk to us and understand what is it that we do.
I think that's a great, what you just said kind of made me think of it a little bit differently. Like, instead of us inviting the schools into our board meetings and making that awkward, where can we fit ourselves into their days and their schools? And I think that that's a wonderful conversation for us to have.
Exactly.
Thank you.
it's a great conversation, but I will tell you, we've done it before. And you've got to be careful about the statements of, well, we did that once, right? The challenge had been is that there was a feeling that board members were looking in and micromanaging to a degree. And so how we do it would need to be more defined than we did when we did it back then. Wasn't as clear about why we were coming in. And things like, well, let's have meetings in the different schools. Now we have the requirement to be able to be filmed. So we hadn't considered how it felt on the other end to have board members just, as a board coming in, or as a board liaison reporting back. So that's the type of things to be sensitive to in terms of that particular topic. Not that it isn't a good
I think that's-
idea.
Yeah, I think that's something we
That's
can
a
definitely discuss.
Give and take.
Thank you. Dr. Lynn?
Amazing. Probably not for the board retreat topics, though. If we're just kind of throwing things out, student representation has been something I've been bringing up several times, and really just taking a solid look at what some of the other school districts around here have been doing to elevate that, and see if that would fit. And then maybe long-term facility planning. I'm not sure if there's enough meat to give us to talk about, but I'd love to start discussing that and looking at that. But if it's not timely, I understand.
I drafted it and I deleted it, and then I drafted it and I deleted it. So I was thinking that too, is how far would we be along on that topic to be able to kind of cast out what that would look like for the year. So we'll look at that more too.
That's good for me.
Thank you.
One last topic. It was a topic, there was Oregon Public Broadcasting. They were talking about the heat and the impact that it has, and especially now that we're seeing heat earlier at the end of the school year in June, we're experiencing, and we certainly experienced it in September, just the way the weather has changed. And one of the challenges was, and this was addressed in Superintendent Owen's report, and I'm looking at Director Southerton, play areas or places for people to meet outside that provide shade. Whether it's trees, what was interesting about this study that they were talking about is whether it was trees, which is they look the best in terms of shade, but shade as it relates to buildings, and shade sales is the other thing. If you just can't, right, then sales can help with that. And it seems like something we should be talking more about, especially in these, late spring and then early fall, when we have the majority of our students in our buildings. Where can they congregate and be safe from heat-related things? So just, again, how we talk about it, where we talk about it, just an awareness, I think, would be nice. And I know we can plant trees, because you've told us we can plant.
I just wrote down tiny
Well,
forests.
I love mentioning the sales division right now is going to be worked on between 148th all the way up to 172nd. They say they want our input, but maybe it's kind of like that cell phone policy. It's kind of like they've already decided what they're going to do, and they need to tell us that they're doing some engagement. But anyway, there are opportunities for us to add suggestions, and they're doing 148th all the way between Stark and Division. Again, they are nominally seeking input.
Same time they're doing now?
Yeah, comments from the community are often, we'd love it if you just did a very small, really good thing instead of trying to stretch out a project and doing pot-marked kind of improvements that seem to fall apart. But also on the resiliency thing, I think that's really important. We've been working on that at the neighborhood level, but since Portland tries to keep its association system at arm's length, it's hard to get the grants at the state level, which are directed to resiliency. So the school board might be uniquely positioned to apply for those grants at the state level, whereas the neighborhood is unable to.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anything else? Yeah, this is good stuff. Superintendent Owens, what you got for us?
I showed you what I had.
Oh, you have more.
I don't. That's it.
What's on your list right there?
I'm writing everything that you all are saying.
All right, well then.
Want to make sure we track it for our Monday meeting when we meet to go over the agenda. Plus, I put that topic that Director Lynn just put when I talk with Director Southerton, so that we can see about the viability of that suggestion. Thank you.
Are we at the final last
Yes.
announcements?
Please.
Just reminding people, we've got the concert in the park at Verdell, Rutherford Park, July 25th, 6:30 to 9:30. Live music by Picante. And then Sunday at Park Lane Park, July 27th, East Portland Sunday Parkways is going to be kicking off. So we'll have a table there and be engaged with the activities. People want to check that out.
How did the concert in the park go at Park Lane last week or the week before?
The grand opening was amazing.
Yeah.
such a beautiful park. A lot more shade, a lot more amenities. The water feature, which I thought they were going to cut until I actually saw it physically, manifested.
A lot of people are talking about that splash zone.
Yeah,
on the
we
Facebook
really
groups.
wanted that.
That's
And
great.
so, yeah, very happy about that. And yeah, it's a very busy month in June.
Great. Yes.
You mentioned the picnic. Were you talking about, just some clarification? Michael, I have a problem, you can see, so this is me hitting a button. I should wear it on my head. Jeez. When you were mentioning the picnic, were you talking about board picnic or what? Tell me scope.
I would like it to be as big as possible.
Okay.
So I'm talking staff from across the district, like a company picnic type thing, including PTOs. We often have trouble connecting with the parents on the PTOs and hearing what their perspective and issues are. So kind of putting them all together so we can talk casually.
Thank you. We used to have, what do they call those things before a football game?
Tailgate?
Tailgate, that was the word, thank you. We used to have tailgaters as board members and with the significant others and family before homecoming. And it was a great time for us to mix with other board members, their significant others and their children too, which was kind of fun. That's why I had to ask about the scope. It was like, is it just this body or a little bit bigger than that?
Love the parade. The more we could include people in that event, I'm
Yeah.
always open to suggestions.
Yeah.
Love it.
Cool, thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, I think this is a record, you guys. 7:42, meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.